especially with how much and how fast you grew Free Up. I bet it's really cool to come in with that knowledge already and make a whole plan. So do you mind sharing what the marketing and the plan is that you have for Outsource School?
Yeah, and the thing to remember is we spent almost no money on ads for the entire 4 years. By the end of it, we were spending $1,000 a month on ads, and that was just retargeting ads, nothing else. So we really grew this entire business organically. And this exact playbook that I'm going to go over here is what we're teaching in Outsource School. We how to hire VAs for these exact things that you can implement in your business. So the first thing is an affiliate program. One of the best business ideas I've ever had is when we started Free Up, any client you refer, you get 50 cents for every hour that we build to them forever. And not only did we have that on the site, super clear, super easy, at the end of every phone call of every client that I had for like 4 years, I would say, oh, by the way, we have this great affiliate program, let them know. And when I finally trained VAs to take phone calls for me, they had to say that at the end of every phone call. So
I
have an
just have to
affiliate
stop you
program.
because I remember you saying that to me at the end of the last interview. And I was like, oh, I mean, sure. And we signed and I recommended it to clients. And it was like, genius. I mean, I know it's typical and we understand, but the way that you did it so consistent, you would follow up because I'm slow, right? So you'd email the team and then be like, hey, you still have this thing. It's like, you guys were so good at that. Anyway, continue. I felt it. It was great.
I appreciate that. And what was weird was, so we launched that. And then like a few months later, people are like, oh, I was at this conference in China and someone told me I should sign up for Free Up. And I was like, all right, well, that's cool. I've never been to China. Like people are talking about it. So you get that there. It's on your website. It's clear. You're telling everyone. Next is podcasts. I mean, podcasts, if you're not, no matter what industry you're in, if you're not doing a podcast a week, you're really missing out. And podcasts are not only great for building relationships with hosts. I mean, you and I have built a relationship over the years, but it's good for getting in front of thousands of people at once, hopefully your ideal target, but it's also good for backlinks. It's good for SEO. It's good for a snowballing effect where you go on podcasts and it gets you on bigger ones and introduce you to bigger connections. So podcast is a key, and we have a course called the Podcast Outreach Formula, which teaches you how to have VAs do all the research for you and all that. Next is putting out content consistently. Anyone that follows me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, I put out 3 posts a day on all channels. I write them earlier in the week. I post them. That's pretty self-explanatory. Next is partnerships. So this is a key. We just launched our partnership playbook, which walks us through how we organize this with the VA, but we look for other people in the space that have the same target audience, but they don't do the same thing as us. So we started off in the Amazon space. We went for Amazon sellers. We went to Amazon software companies and said, hey, you don't offer VA services. We don't offer Amazon software. Let's do some blog swaps. Let's do some email blasts. Let's do some webinars. We even did some joint like networking VIPs at parties at conferences. Like you can get really creative there. But establishing those partnerships where you're constantly promoting people is incredibly important. And I'll let you jump in before I keep going.
I was totally going to ask about partnerships. Go, yeah. So how do you make those work? Because a lot of people will be like, oh, we'll start with a partnership, but then they don't hold up their end of the bargain, or they're hard to get, or like tit for tat. Like, how did you actually give us some tips on the partnership side?
So first you have to understand what you can actually handle, right? Because if you had 100 partnerships tomorrow and they all need a guest blog post every single month, you better have a ton of writers ready to go. So understanding what you can actually handle is important. From there, you want to make it as easy as possible for the partner. I mean, counting on them to remember to do stuff doesn't work. So you have to have it organized on your end and decide what the frequency is. Is it every quarter? Is it every half year? Is it every year? And you also need a way to evaluate partners, because ideally you want partners that are the same size as you or bigger. You don't want to do a monthly blog post with someone who has 5 people in their Facebook group. That doesn't make sense. So you figuring that out is important. And once you get those things in place, having a VA that organizes all of it, that says, hey, it's been 6 months, let's reach out to this partner and see what they want to do. And then make sure you have that person on your end to set up the webinar or do the podcast or write the blog post. That's how we do it. We get that partnership set up, but we have all the frequency things. We make it easy for them. And then we have a VA manage it ongoing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then you can tweak it as you go too. How do you find out how big the partners are? Because I know that's always a thing. It's like, oh, well, how big is their list? We don't really know right now. We're starting to do research.
Yeah, I mean, there's a research component and you could ask them questions on the phone and stuff like that. And the truth is that list size doesn't mean everything, right? I mean, I've had people that had a huge list, and for whatever reason, people didn't sign up as free up clients. And I remember I went on this very like niche podcast that had a very small amount of listeners, and everyone signed up to be free up clients. So not always the end all be all. It takes a little tweaking. It takes a little bit of figuring out your customer avatar, and what are your ideal partnerships.
Well, and you guys were amazing. Like, I've gotten so many emails from you. That's why I thought you were still at Free Up. I was like, I just feel like I get emails from you guys all the time with reminders of follow. Hey, we can totally do a guest post. We could do this. We could do that. And I kept boomeranging it, just so you know, because I'd be like, later. Okay, thanks, Nathan. Okay, you guys are awesome. Okay, and you did. You ended up writing a guest post for me too, which I really appreciate. But that continuous follow up. What was your system for that? Was that you every single time? Was that somebody else doing it?
So usually we never have VAs pretend to be us. That's been something forever. So if it says like, hey, this is Nathan Hirsch, it's always Nathan Hirsch. Connor, my business partner, usually handles a partnership. So my guess is the emails were coming from him. But the VA will manage it all. And then he'll say, hey, Connor, these are 3 people that we're scheduled to do a partnership with. And then Connor would do the quick reach out. So if you think of everything that we talk about in this organic marketing playbook as 100%, the VA is doing like 90%. You or someone else on your team is doing that last 10%, whether it's showing up for the podcast or reaching out with that partnership email or showing up to a client call. But the VA is doing the before and sometimes even the after. Like after I'm on this podcast, you're going to get an email saying, hey, thanks for having me on. Here are the links. And that comes from my VA. So getting it to where they're doing 90% and you're doing 10% is key.
Yeah, and you've learned that. You've done a very, very good job. So the good news is that you practice what you preach, which I really appreciate. So you're not creating a course and going like, oh yeah, do this, and you don't actually have experience. So thank you for that.